I think we just get right to it. Today we're here to talk about if you throw under 85 miles an hour, finish my sentence.
Yeah, I think the world of baseball player development as a whole, the process for getting an athlete to go play at the level that most of them want to play at, which is like at least college, and most of them want to play pro ball in some capacity. And I would rarely say that I have an athlete that's like, I just want to play high school baseball. I don't know if I've even ever had that. Almost 10 times out of 10, it's they want to play in college. So, knowing that that's an athlete's goal, I think we need to zoom out and look at the system from, call it like 8-ish years old. I feel like that's a normal, quote, normal time on when most athletes kind of start to get into the baseball world, and maybe they are taking some, quote, lessons and so on and so forth. And at least down here in Florida, and especially in this area, that 8 years old mark seems to be when they're starting to even get introduced into travel ball and starting to play some real baseball. So, with that being said, say, I don't have kids yet, but if I had a son at 8 years old, and he told me, Dad, all I really want to do is I want to play college baseball, and I would want to play pro ball just like you did. Like, okay, awesome. So how would I, having the expertise and going through my experience with playing, what would be the best way to design that? So for myself, I would really focus on him actually learning how to throw first and foremost. I've got my Fuego here, and we're going to be doing some Fuego camps here coming up, and it's super important to even learn the basics as to, it's cliche, but it's like how to grip a baseball, how to throw a baseball. And I would say for most athletes, if I can see that baseball, their hands are just so small that a lot of the times with how they're gripping it, they're just grabbing it any way that feels almost comfortable. And it shows up on the mound. They're watching their ball. Most of them really like to cut the ball a lot. Their thumb gets really high. They're almost throwing baby cutters or like baby sliders. And you see even in their pitching motion that their body is really smart and it's perceptive and it's seeing that. And then they start to move in different ways on the mound to almost play into how much they're cutting the ball. So, step one on that athlete's journey is even something as simple as like, do they actually know how to grip a baseball? And again, probably 9 times out of 10, unless their dad plays into higher levels of the game or just been around any type of good, quote, even decent coaching, most of the time is no. And so starting at that level and then kind of working up, as they get into kind of ages 12 and beyond, if they've not necessarily mastered, if they've gotten comfortable with throwing, right? So with how we run kind of our core drills here, I would say for most of those youth athletes from ages 8 to 12-ish, it's not really pitching, you're just teaching them how to throw, right? Going back into the grip stuff, maybe dabbling in a little bit of a changeup, and really just kind of leaving it there. Most of the issues that I feel like we see with the youth athletes is there's something with their arm action, either they're late or maybe, a dad was trying to be super helpful and they saw something in regards to like a long toss and their elbow's really low at front foot plant. It almost looks like they're trying to throw the ball to the sky. Or one of the biggest things that we really see too is that they're really closed with their lower half. So their pelvis is really closed. So if, kind of towards the camera here is home plate and I've got a righty, we want to see their belt buckle kind of split the difference between home plate and third base. Every athlete's going to have a little bit of distinction there into their own kind of unique ways that they want to throw and slot dependent, so on and so forth. But for most of those athletes, they land really closed. And so I feel like from ages 8 to 12, it's just making sure that we're hitting those big core checkpoints. And so early on in actual development, they get lost. And they go right into like pitching, and now we're trying to throw strikes, or even, we've got 10-year-olds that are now worried about holding runners. It's like they don't even know, they're so new to even learning how to throw. Why are we also adding and throwing runners? So conversation for a different time, but kind of summarizing, at least on the youth side of things, and when I say youth, I mean anything less than 60 feet, 6 inches, is that step one is they just need to learn how to throw. And I feel like so quickly, well-meaning parents and coaches and so on and so forth just like skip that phase and they just go right into playing games mode. And then that style of development just like continues on all the way through high school. So on the youth side of things, that's kind of where I would see with most athletes is starting with how to throw a baseball, like actually gripping a baseball, starting with the four seam, teaching them what it feels like to actually throw, you know, like the middle of the baseball, get backspin, making sure that they're moving in a way that will help them when they actually want to pitch, like that they're throwing well so that they can go in and pitch well. And then one other side of it as well is just starting to get them comfortable with some of the strength work. It's things as simple as doing hangs or bear crawls, or anything in regards to like a single leg, like a lunge, or even a rear foot elevated if they can kind of handle that. And so many of those foundation principles just kind of get washed out. And then they're coming to us at ages 13, 14, 15, wanting to be better at pitching, but they kind of skip the foundation of what would even get you ready to even start the conversation of, you know, why TrackMan would be meaningful, or why in time starting to do some more intense and intentional like velo focused work, like velo cycles. So long-winded answer for it starts at the youth side. I think that sprinkles up into some of the things that this conversation will mostly be about, with like if you aren't throwing quote 85, because obviously a youth athlete isn't going to throw 85. But again, just backtracking, it starts at an earlier age, and they just get caught up into the keeping up with the Joneses of, you know, well, this guy, my neighbor, is playing travel ball, and they're doing this, and they're playing 4 to 6 games every single weekend. Like, that's how my kid needs to get better, and that's just not simply the case. Like, they got to be able to actually go away from the field to be able to dedicate time to fail and to have space to explore, rather than so focused on, you know, little Johnny walk 3 batter state. Well, little Johnny's trying to learn how to not have his thumb right next to his index finger, and it's really uncomfortable for him right now. But that's okay, because 5 years from now, you're really happy that you did that.
Yeah.
So I know that was a really long-winded answer. I feel like I kind of relatively covered a general overview of some of the youth stuff.
So the primary claim, though, is all of that in context matters. The primary claim is if you're a high school athlete and you're not throwing 85 miles an hour,
right,
fill in the blank.
So yeah, and so that was kind of just establishing like
Context,
pre-context
sure.
as to where it even like comes from, why this issue exists even on through the later times. So yes, my take is if we aren't throwing the baseball 85 plus miles an hour, there is basically no need for you to go out and go do these perfect game tournaments or these showcases or XYZ kind of fill in the blank. There is a time and place, and I'm speaking in regards to pitching, because with hitting, I'm not a hitting guy, however, like live at-bats and getting reps in the field of balls off the barrel, like all of that is super important. It's really hard to replicate that in a non-actual game setting. So speaking solely on pitching here, you have to develop yourself to the level to where you can even enter into the conversation of what your goals are. And if your goal is to play college baseball, I say 85. That's like, I mean, that is absolute barely kind of bare minimum. Realistically, we could probably swap that out for like 88 plus in the world of baseball with the transfer portal and less scholarship Division I setting. So, you know, bare minimum, we'll say even 85. So now how do we solve that problem, and then, you know, also why do we say that that's important? Okay, if we are solely playing games and our focus is playing games, I would say most athletes that we have that do the travel ball thing play pretty much every other weekend. However, what I've come to learn from doing this, most of those coaches of the travel ball orgs don't even outline when those athletes are going to throw, how much they're going to throw, and it's just very scattered and all over the place, and there's no true intention for the outing, okay? So I'll give an example of pro ball and kind of how you work up the levels of pro ball. In rookie ball, it's just like, please keep in the zone. Like making sure that pretty much guys are slowly building their stuff, and it's like, you know, hey, don't throw it to the backstop every 10 pitches kind of deal, right? You're throwing 97, it can't go to the backstop, okay? So that's like rookie ball-ish level. As you work into as you work into like low A, now you're starting to enter into like, okay, these dudes have stuff and they can throw it in the zone. Biggest things that I would say in like a low A type setting, is going to be kind of one, increasing velo. Most of those guys are still younger. They're still kind of growing a little bit. They're like young 20s. And then outside of that is starting to learn a little bit more about their pitch shapes, maybe improving a pitch shape or understanding how to throw that certain type of action in certain counts to certain locations. So that was what I would say is kind of summarizing the low A side of things as a pitcher. High A starts to get a little bit more involved where you're really starting to understand your own stuff and how it plays best in the zone, and now it's almost like starting to understand your usage strategies a little bit to from lefties or righties or counts or even what's going on in the game, what you're trying to get to have happen, if you're trying to get soft contact, or if you're trying to get a whiff, like because you really need to punch out, so on and so forth. And that'd be more of the high A setting. And I'm going to get to kind of how to outline this. I'm just kind of painting an overall portrait here. Double A, you're facing really a lot better hitters, like big league type caliber hitters. So now it's starting to learn how you can beat those guys with the stuff that you develop. And then Triple A is kind of similar to Double A. It's just more established hitters, so on and so forth. And maybe there's a little of something that you're trying to add here, or maybe it's even like a fourth or a fifth offering, like a cutter or like a something extra that's not a main usage pitch that's just going to help you get big league hitters out that are obviously really good. So again, long-winded way, but that's that there's a progression to professional baseball and how you're developing a pitcher. With the world of travel ball and most high school baseballs, there's no real plan for an athlete. There's no true, hey, for your freshman year, which most kids really need, it's like we're going to focus on velocity and like your main secondary offering that you feel most comfortable with. We can dabble with the third one if you really want to, but it's like, hey buddy, you're throwing 78 to 80. Not going to cut it, like based upon your goals. Now, could you get high school hitters out? 100%. But again, we have to base it off of what the athlete wants to do for us as coaches. So for a sophomore, it's kind of similar to almost like that low A, high A setting, where now we're going to go and be like, okay, now you're throwing, maybe you're 82, 84. Like we're starting to get there. Velo is like enough. We know what we kind of need to do. We're going to keep ticking. We're going to get stronger. We're going to gain some weight, so on and so forth. But now it's like, okay, now let's start to see if we can throw that off-speed stuff in a 2-0 count. Are we comfortable throwing it in the zone? And so as you're working up those levels, and as a junior in high school, velo should be starting to tick up. Now we're maybe you are 85, kind of 88 guy. Now we're really working on that third pitch and how we can, same deal, maybe just focusing on the action. If location is good, great, but like we're trying to really establish really good action. And then as a senior, it's starting to kind of put it together and really almost getting yourself prepared for college, challenging yourself with certain pitch usages, like, maybe you're throwing like 90 plus. Ideal setting, you could probably be 70+% heaters, but that's not going to play your next year, so it's challenging yourself. It's 2-0, you have a righty up, let's try and throw a breaking ball that you kind of struggle with in the zone. So again, just like painting the picture, that's what development is designed, that is development. Right. And I would say for most high school athletes, especially when they're first coming to us, they're just totally lost. Right. They don't understand their stuff. They don't know what they need to work on, and if they do know what they need to work on, a lot of times it's stuff that it's just a waste of time, or it's like level 10. It's like, no, you don't need a fifth pitch right now. You're 85. You know what I mean? And so, you can't throw your breaking ball in the zone on a behind count. Like, let's focus on that. The shape is good, so let's focus on throwing it in counts that are more challenging for you to throw them in. And again, just building them that individual plan. So where I'm going with that with travel ball or with high school baseball in the spring, those coaches are there to win. Like they're going to keep their jobs if they win. Same thing as college, which is fine. And you can do development and you can also win. However, you have to backtrack what the athlete needs based upon their goals. And overall, just summarizing that doesn't happen very much. So then you have athletes that are 82 to 85 that are trying to go to showcases and fight for their life to get maybe a D3 scholarship in Timbuktu University. Right. When in reality, and it's just, they're just trying to do too much too late, and it's, your senior year comes and goes, and that junior summer, which is still really that big recruiting period, like you're a freshman, that's gonna you're gonna be a junior in your summer and look up and be like, oh my God, like I'm still throwing low 80s and no schools care about me. Right. And it's just because you didn't have a actual plan and really learn where you suck right. To be able to progress yourself. So did that answer? Okay.
Yeah. It's from my understanding, and obviously we've had these conversations off camera, but from my understanding, people are, you know how our friend Alex would explain it, is there's a foundation. If it's a pyramid shape, the foundation is obviously the widest part of the pyramid and needs to be built for you to work on higher level skills, from my understanding, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
And it makes perfect sense, by the way, because if it's just like anything else. Like if you try to skip steps as an entrepreneur, for example, if you try to go from, you know, not ever running a business to running a bajillion-dollar business, it's like, well, buddy, you don't have a foundation. You don't even know what you're doing yet, you know. And in the context of sports, that could lead to injuries. In the context of business, obviously, that would lead to financial collapse in some sense. So why don't you talk about the injury? Like, how could that lead to injury? Like, how could that take an athlete who's playing showcases, putting his body at risk year round, who's maybe not exactly ready physically to do that, and obviously his stuff might not be there yet to even need to be scouted. So why don't you just talk about that? Like, I'll just leave the floor open, and I want to hear your perspective on all of that.
Would it be helpful, like, kind of define what the foundation is?
Yes.
Okay. So, starting with the foundation, one, there's three main things that are going to influence how an athlete's going to show up for his career. Step one is strength.
Yeah.
And I bring up strength because it takes the longest amount of time to actually get to the level where you're capable of putting out the force and accepting the force that we're trying to put into the baseball. It just takes time. It's a year's thing. So strength is super important, and then strength / mobility, like strength through, you know, end ranges of motion. Throwing is an extremely dynamic, challenging, just overall movement, and we're going to ask our body to get into some pretty crazy positions that the normal human being doesn't get into. So we have to be strong, we have to be stable in those end ranges of motion. Second thing, once those boxes are checked off or you're actively working on them, then we can kind of start to talk about mechanics. So, you know, going back into being a good thrower, like pitching and throwing are two different things.
Is there an even lower level of that foundation as just being an athlete and then thrower?
Yeah, so yes and no, because you could pull ends of the spectrum where, you know, a guy that just sucks at everything else, they're just really good at pitching. So for the most part, yes, I would say ideally, like, I would love to have all of our kids be exposed to, you know, we've got the basketball hoop, and like, go play basketball. I want you to be able to move your feet around. I want you to be able to, you know, do a handstand. You know, I think gymnastics is phenomenal for overhead strength and just different ways that we're going to put our body in, or just football and being able to be reactionary and be creative with creating routes or stuff if you're like a receiver. So I think there's carryover, but there's obviously outliers.
Sure.
And I'm not against specializing. If that's what the kid wants, like, you can sprinkle in, like, they don't have to do another sport to be good at pitching. It's helpful. I would say I would encourage athletes to not do that. But we've had athletes in here that I've worked with that they just love it. Like, they just love baseball, and like, they don't want to do other stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, you just have to sprinkle it in. But yeah, I mean, overall, being a good athlete is definitely important.
So strength, range of motion.
Yeah.
Strength and range of motion.
Yep. And then you can start to talk about into like the throwing motion side of things, like the movement pattern side of things. You know, you got to be able to be a good thrower. You got to be able to make sure that certain parts of the motion aren't going to put you at a higher risk of injury. Making sure that your arm isn't extremely late when you're at front foot plant. You know, when we're at front foot plant, making sure that we're not into a ton of elbow flexion or a bunch of elbow extension or so on and so forth. Right. There's plenty of different things that we can go down of the mechanical checklist. I would say those are the main ones to kind of be aware of. But, you know, making sure you're a good thrower, a good enough thrower, to be able to then work on pitching. And then from there, now you're going to start to be able to get into the pitching side of things. But it's strength through those ranges of motion and mobility, and then it's focusing on the movement patterns. Would be on the kind of foundation of everything. And again, whether it's throwing, pitching, or whether it is for them to go do other sports, it's almost like in college where it's like, no matter if you're going to go and get your doctorate, you're going to go be an MD, or you're going to do XYZ that's maybe not as, quote, challenging as being an MD. It's like your first 2 years in college, like, everybody takes basically the same thing your first year in college.
Right.
And so, like, for us with throwing and training athletes, that's that bottom of the foundation. It's like, you got to take the same classes as everybody else.
Yeah. You got to build that foundation before you can go and work on these higher level things.
Absolutely.
So that's a part of the original claim too. of saying, you know, if you're not 85 plus, there's really no need to go doing travel ball and showcases, not just because you might not get the looks that you want, but also because you're putting yourself at a higher risk of injury because of the force that's being put on your body, and you're not able to sustain that for the long term, is what I'm understanding.
100%.
Yeah.
And then I think outside of that as well, they seem to go hand in hand. For most athletes that haven't gone and done some of the strength work and worked with anybody that has even a tick of knowledge about how to manage a throwing athlete.
As far as workload goes?
Exactly, right? So, you know, unfortunately, it's not like hitting where you can just like hit till your hands bleed. We've got to be a little bit more intentional and just intelligent about it, to be honest. And so it has to be scripted out a little bit more, and when to take off time, and when to deload, when to push velocity, when you're ready and capable to do that, and managing even in those cycles, like when we're doing our arm care testing unit with athletes, making sure that they're able to handle the stress that we're going to ask them to do down there, and so on and so forth. But yeah, workload is another one that you could say is part of that foundation. It's more of like baseball pitching specific, but it's a foundation for these athletes as they move forward to have some type of structure and plan that they can work around. And again, it's for us, like when we do have our youth nights in here, they're very intentional days on what times we do them. So for those of you that don't work with us here in-house, we do our youth days just on Wednesdays or Saturday mornings. And the reason for that is when those kids are playing those travel baseball games, obviously they're playing like Saturdays and Sundays, maybe a sprinkle of a Friday. So if they throw on the weekend, Wednesday is still a really good time for them to come in and do a pen and do some of our, you know, higher volume throwing work, what we're asking them to do. And then obviously if they don't have a tournament, then like that Saturday is a good time as well. But you know, you ask most kids before they start working with us, it's like, how many days are you throwing? What days are you doing what? And they look at you like you have three heads, and it's like it's just all pieced together. And granted, there's weather constraints and so on and so forth, but there's no structure.
Right.
There's no structure at all. And so it just leaves people, you know, they don't know what they don't know. It's not a knock on anybody, but it is. There is no structure that's from anything concrete.
Right, as far as scientific data and what's right by these kids and things like that.
For sure,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Why is that? I think, yeah, that's a whole other conversation, but I'm curious to talk about that now. Why is there no structure? Why isn't there more information about how to properly do this? And maybe the question isn't even why. Maybe it's how can that proper information be agreed upon as a baseball community, not just here in Sarasota, but in general.
Well, people try with like the pitch counts and things, but
Sure.
again, that's just on the tournament days.
Right.
Even still, that's still pretty limiting because they're probably playing another position, and there's a study done by a guy's last name was McWilliams, and I believe it was like 52, maybe 57% of all throws were actually tracked when we do the pitch count thing with the Little League stuff. So there's so many throws that are even missed already.
I see. That aren't being calculated for
Right.
as far as workload goes.
100%, right? And again, almost even backtracking before that, it's like, okay, but what did they do during the week? Like you're gonna ask them to throw 3, 4, 5, 6 innings. Like that's a lot for a kid. And sprinkle in the fact that at times those coaches will have them throw twice on the weekend. So kind of going back to your question, I think it's just education. It's sitting down and having conversations like this with people that are smarter than us, like, you know, having somebody that specializes in maybe using like a MODIS sleeve or a pulse sleeve, I should say, or anything that really monitors some of the workload strategies and just best practices. And I think it'd be really helpful, and you know, we obviously try and do that here and do it here for our athletes, just giving them some structure. It's like, hey, let's probably have your 2 high intent days per week. Let's be intentional about what days we're gonna do them. You know, it's like Wednesday, Saturday, or if they throw Wednesday, Sunday, it's like, please don't throw twice on the weekend. But you know, we've dealt with it already with travel ball coaches in time, and we try to have those conversations with them. And they're like, but we only have this many pitchers, and we got to be able to get through this many games. And that, you know, if we're going to point one giant kind of light on some of those issues and kind of what sparks sitting down and having this conversation, it's that type of an answer. It's like, you're completely missing the point. of everything that matters for this kid, and truly even just how baseball works. I mean, there's a reason why the postseason's going on right now. Those are grown men.
Yeah.
They're grown-ass men. They're strong. They've got the foundation. They have the best trainers in the world. They're giving themselves the best shot to bounce back. And I guarantee you, if you ask them how they feel after they throw 2 nights in a row, the answer is not going to be they feel good. Like, they're going to feel really bad. And they're grown men. Yes, they're throwing 100, so on and so forth. But you can argue it's a
all
pretty
relative. Yeah.
Exactly, right. And so for us, and I'll kind of give into my experience, it could have been an out. Like, say I came in on a Friday night, I threw an out to help get out of an inning, and for whatever reason my night was done after that, I'm not throwing the next day. Like, I'm not pitching a game, no matter how much I'm like, I'm good. Like, with the Mariners, you're just, nope, you're not going to throw the next day. So pretty much every inning, you have about a day, that many days off. And an out is an inning, same thing. Like an up, down, getting out in the game.
So you're saying a big problem that needs addressing is that in the youth sector is Johnny throwing twice on the weekend because the lack of pitchers on the team. And you're saying it doesn't matter. Like, this is not right by Johnny doing this to his body. Even
Yes.
though he might want it, even though your team might want it, even though you might want it as a coach because Johnny may be your best pitcher.
Right.
What you're saying is it doesn't matter. That needs to stop because of what is now, I only can assume you would be better to speak on this than I would, but an arm injury epidemic amongst youth, is that fair to say?
I feel like with us here, I mean, luckily, like our athletes usually feel really good.
Yeah.
But the growth plate thing is something that I'm seeing more and more of. So let me phrase it a little bit better. Like Little League elbow is what it'd be called, right? And it's a workload issue. It's a strength issue. They go hand in hand. They don't have the strength to be able to handle how good they are, the skill. I mean, dude, down here we've got, it's not even like we're pushing them on velo, but they're throwing 60 miles an hour at like 10, 9, 10, and it's like, oh my God, like they're very good at throwing a baseball. And toot our own horn, but like with the strategies and how we train guys, like they usually feel really good, but we really have to make sure that because of that, because we're getting them good at the skill, that the bottom foundation, that their strength and so on and so forth, are taken care of. So not only is it that they're asking to be throwing back-to-back weekends, it's also, during the week when they go to practice, it's all the top of the period, it's all skill work, right? Bare minimum is like sometimes I would say some of the coaches or teams and like players that we've asked, it's like they do bands kind of, sort of, and that's like a bare minimum. It's like go play catch.
One of these here.
The stock, right? the this one, the forearm thing, like for whatever reason is like the most stock. Everybody's baseball strategy, right? It's like that's probably not the best strategy, right? It's been like 50 years. So, it's just not. It's just structure. It comes back. It's education and like true structure. And it leads into a chaos of disorganization throughout the entire baseball community. And the ones that get affected by it the most are the probably 10 to like through high school, like 10 years old to like through high school. Because again, being in a state like Florida, an area like Sarasota, they can play every day. If if it doesn't get rained out, you have beautiful baseball weather. Or you could go out and throw and long toss and do this and that. And so there's just, it's structure and it's education and it's reining in almost the passion that they have, but saying like, hey, like if you just follow, you don't need to throw 7 days a week. It doesn't need to be high intensity day 5 of those 7 days either. If you can play this long game with us, you're going to be in such a good spot, and we'll kind of work up. You're talking about like those steps, right? The kind of like a ladder. Like you're going to slowly work up these like little levels and steps and steps and steps. But it starts with if they're going to be around the mostly on the travel ball side, because the Little League stuff is usually like 2 games a week and they're pretty spaced out. But with the travel ball stuff, it's education and making sure that the athletes that are out on the field, and specifically pitchers, are ready to handle how good they are at the skill of baseball and how many times, in terms of like a workload, like pitch count, so on and so forth, how many times they can handle how good they are at the skill of it.
Yeah. So all of that is super useful information, but if I'm I'll just use a high school kid for example, and I
Mhm.
don't throw that 85 number,
Yep.
and I am playing travel ball, and I'm doing high school baseball, and I'm like doing a lot of the top of the skill work. I'm doing a lot of the skill
Yeah.
work. What do I need to do differently? Say I'm a sophomore or a freshman. I
Yep.
still have a little bit of time. What do I need to do differently moving forward? Like, what would you tell me if I came to you and I said,
For sure.
I'm 82 to 83 miles an hour. I'm a sophomore.
Yeah.
I play on this travel team. I play on this high school team. I throw this 6 times, 7 times high intensity a week. What do I need to do to make sure that my goal of playing college baseball is achieved?
Yeah, so I'll give a really rough general uh, throwing plan, like a overall day-to-day plan, and then I'll kind of talk about anything underneath that. But I think if there's one thing that an athlete could take from even this conversation is like run a throwing plan like this. So Sundays, if I can perfectly script a throwing plan, is there's no throwing on Sundays. I think it's really important to step away. Obviously, with what you do in our conversations, like go be a human being, go do
Right.
something else besides baseball, or go to the beach, or do nothing. Like go sit somewhere and just like look at the sky, right? Like go seriously, like like go
Yeah.
be a human.
Yeah.
Mondays are typically a light throwing day, and kind of caveat here, light means light. So think of it as like a 60% of your top velo day. So, round number, say you throw 100, that means you're only throwing the baseball 60 miles an hour. That probably doesn't even feel like throwing. You can probably get away with a little bit higher to make it feel like throwing, but light needs to be light. 6 to 8 minutes of catch play. If you want to mix in a little bit of light drill work beforehand, med balls or like some light plyos or something, totally fine. So light on Monday. Tuesday, if you're built up and you're testing and the bottom of the pyramid is taken care of, that's a good day to then do a high intensity day. Depends on what phase and season you're in on what that looks like, but high intensity day, full bullpen or plyo velo, whatever that looks like, high intensity day. Wednesday, I typically script off or really light throwing. I do have some athletes that like to even just throw the football, something light, just to throw a something. But Wednesday is off or really, really light. Thursday is a really good day to have what we call like a medium day. So if there's a really big issue, whether it's command or a pitch shape or something even in your motion that just feels really out of whack, that's a good day to bring intensity down, no more than 7, absolute max 8 kind of out of 10 intensity range there. And to be able to work on some more drill work or feel for an off-speed pitch or even like a command day, you can do some fun command games, kind of like whatever that lowest hanging fruit. That's a good day to really work on that. Friday would be the same as Monday, really light. Again, really light, and then Saturday would be same as Tuesday where you can do another high intent day, and then Sunday would be off. So that's kind of like a typical week. So I would say if you're coming in as a high school athlete, I just want to start overview there. It would become, can become individualized to you and your season and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But like that's a pretty good, solid start for a throwing calendar for a week. And then from there, the other thing that I would say, and what I like to do most with athletes, and I think it's something kind of similar that you do with your kind of mental performance guys as well, is I just want to break down time. Like, what are the actual actionables, the actual action steps that we
Right.
need to be
Yeah.
taking,
Yeah.
right? It's like, well, okay, we've got 24 hours in the day. You sleep probably 8-ish of those, or by the time you get up, so on and so forth, right? Well, you've got 16 left. Okay, well, you got school. That's probably 7 hours. You've got 9 hours left. Well, you have team practice, and that's probably like 2 hours. Like, you dwindle it down so much where you only have like this short window to actually
Right.
do what you need to do. So having that conversation with those guys, plus they have schoolwork, and they probably have a girlfriend, and they want to go be a kid and like go fish or whatever
Right.
it is. So it's like, okay, you need to block off 2-ish, probably 3 or less is probably a better way to say it, hours per day, 5 to maybe 6 days a week to really train. So, and by train, it's to follow a throwing calendar based upon your individual needs and your movement patterns, so on and so forth, whatever you need there. And then you need to go lift. You need to go train. An hour in the weight room is probably bare minimum, I would say, for most of those guys. If you really want to jumpstart, you're in that low 80s, and you said you're like a sophomore, right? It's like an hour and a half, you're going to probably add in some extra mobility work or some recovery work, whatever that looks like. Is probably a good place to be. So that brings you to about 2.5 hours pretty quick. And if you just wash, rinse, repeat that, the guys that I've been around that were, the not 6'3"-ish, God's gift to kind of like being a really good pitcher, the 6 foot and under guys, or just guys in general had to kind of work for it a little bit. If you ask them, they just for 5-ish days every single week, they did that. They did their throwing, they did their lifting, whatever that looked like, and they just put it on repeat. It's just it's a matter of consistency and getting in a routine. You call it battle rhythm.
Right.
And I think for us here, running this business and helping these guys, we get into a battle rhythm, and it's like, I have to pop out to go do something on a weekend for something. You got to pop out. It's like it takes you 2-3 days just to like reorient. And it's like, okay, this is
Right.
kind of my body clock. So, going back to what you were saying, that's where I would start with them is
Structuring their life around the goal that which is playing Division I baseball.
and it's exactly what you said. I'm happy you said it that way. It's your life. Like
Right.
it has to be, it's really, really hard. Throwing a baseball, 88, 90, beyond that, I mean, my God, like it requires all of it. It
Right.
requires all of yourself.
Yeah.
You want to go throw 100 like all these guys on playoffs? This is the only thing they do. When they're in season, those few months before season, there is not much else that they do.
Only thing they do in the sense that they're in pursuit of mastery in one area of their life.
Right.
Not only thing they do as in, I eat baseball, I sleep baseball, I don't think about anything aside from baseball. It's like, no, these people have families and lives and
Yeah.
other hobbies. But they're in pursuit of mastery in this one specific discipline and not many others, just because you can't pursue mastery in more than one thing at a time,
Yeah.
at least. In my belief, and I know
For
you
like
kinda
my
share.
for
Right,
like
right, yeah.
whatever level that I'm at as a human, like there's just no way.
Right.
There's
yeah.
just no way. No, and I totally agree. Yeah, and it's not, if anything, and I'm happy you cleared that up too.
Yeah.
You should have, that's why the Sundays are
Right.
so important. Like,
Right.
go whatever, rock climb, like awesome. Like we got guys that they go rock climbing, or guys play a lot of golf now, and so on and so forth.
Right.
But yeah, and then on those days where, and even on those light days of like throwing, it's nothing crazy. You need to go throw. But on those Tuesdays and Saturdays and even those Thursdays, like on the day, you gotta lock in. Like you need to be here.
Right.
You gotta fully be there, and you gotta whatever you've got in the tank for that day. It's so cliche, but you have to absolutely empty it.
Right.
Or you're just not. If you want to play big league ball, especially, you're not going to get there.
And that's a whole other can of worms that I'm sure we can dedicate an entire episode to. But I just want to touch on it, and that is the way that kids are practicing now is not intentional whatsoever. And it's like, from the skill standpoint, the foundation of the pyramid, if you will,
Yeah.
is everything that you talked about. The foundation of the pyramid of mastery is attention. And you can't pursue mastery if your practice repetitions are not intentional. Whether you're 85 miles an hour or 90 miles an hour, it doesn't matter, because as far as the long-term perspective goes, you're not going to last very long if your practice repetitions suck. So I just wanted to add that in, because I see it sometimes with our guys in here. In fact, our guys in here are really good about that. They're really intentional with their practice reps, which is awesome. But for the majority of these coaches and programs nowadays, we run a practice where there's a lot of standing around, kids get disengaged.
Yeah.
When they're disengaged, they're doing things half-assed. When they're doing things half-assed, their risk of injury obviously goes up. They're not getting better. And then they come to us sometimes and they're like, I need to get better. And it's like, well, you don't even pay attention with what you're doing. How are you going to get better at this? So I just wanted to mention that, because that's a part of the issue too. And with you on the throwing side, you're so good at that, and you're so good on the mental side too. But I did want to just offer that perspective, because the two go hand in hand. The 85 miles an hour, if you want to go from 85 to 90, you can't do that if you're not actually focused. And to your point, structuring your life around that mastery.
It's super difficult.
Yeah.
And I think at times, even with 12-year-old baseball, like
Yeah.
whatever it's hard. It's a tough sport. I know every sport says that, but it is, like, that's the point. Like, it's hard.
Right.
Like, especially with throwing, in terms of just how your body feels. Like, you start throwing hard. You and I were throwing yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
I feel like
all right,
shit.
like I definitely threw yesterday. Like, I'm sitting here and I feel like I'm getting tight. I'm like, oh my God, like it's hard. And so I think, a message to parents and other coaches that, not a knock on your experience in the game, because I think there's a place for everybody and whatever, and just to have the passion and help support your kid
Sure.
or whatever it is. But it's it's really hard. Like it's really difficult. And knowing that, especially, again, I keep bringing up the postseason, but go watch what it would be like to be wearing a Red Sox uniform with the packed out Yankees crowd, and you're facing Aaron Judge and Stanton and Grisham. You got the best hitters on the planet in the most, really one of the toughest environments probably to throw in all of baseball. And if you're not locked into your training setting, it's only gonna just reveal its head there. And it's easy when it's easy in here, and you can kind of be comfortable. And it's something I think with how we set up kind of more of almost like the competition side of training for us here. Guys can push each other and hold each other accountable. But if you're just throwing a bullpen in your backyard and it's just like to make throws for the day, it's going to show up at some point, and it might not be that day or that year or even the next couple of years. But if you want to go play big boy baseball, it's going to show up at some point.
Yeah. So do you think that, as far as structuring someone's life around the pursuit of mastery, that sometimes playing these big tournaments and sometimes doing these extra things that on the surface seem like they're helping the goal, which is play college baseball, these showcases really push themselves and pride themselves on, we help guys get placed in college baseball. Would you say that there's a better way to kind of go about that in context of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, and it just comes from structure.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not against by any means, even if you aren't, quite to that 85 number, if it's an intentional, you've been training for, you're in a good place with the foundation.
Yeah.
You're feeling good. We're even on the way up. Pitch shapes are good. Command has been solid. Having that game stimulus, it can be super important, but you almost have to earn the right to do that. And it needs to be scripted out. It needs to be, okay, I'm throwing on this day, and for this, kind of like, even like a 2 weeks, it's like, okay, let's make sure that we're kind of ready to go for that day, or even that week before, bare minimum, and just script your week around when the main event is. And I feel like so often when we'll have athletes come in and, we're mostly Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? If an athlete's going to go play Saturday or Sunday and they come in on a Thursday and they want to, throw a pen or do at least a medium, probably they want to do like a high intent day, and I say, hey, like, what day are you throwing this weekend? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, it's Thursday. You could be throwing in 48 hours and you don't know. Like, how are you supposed to know what to do throwing today? Do you need to do a light day? Can we do more of a medium day? Can we even add intensity? Are you not going to throw till even the championship day on Monday? Like, it just needs to have more structure. And to kind of call it out, like the travel ball coaches have to be held more accountable for a true throwing plan. Like, they have to.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's bare minimum. It's like, what day are you going to have guys throw on certain days? And to platoon them, especially we'll kind of go back to the younger side, where it's like they play their 2 games Saturday, and then it's like they could play however many they go up and ending up playing on Sunday. But it's like, okay, these are our Saturday guys for this specific weekend. These are our Saturday guys, and they're going to throw this day. And then these are going to be our Sunday guys. And say you're on the back end of a Sunday and your team doesn't make it there. Well, that's cool. That means you're going to be the first out on that first Sunday. And I would say that's the best system to run it. With the older guys, it's probably a little bit more scripted as well, because you kind of know who the teams are and usually guaranteed like at least 2 days. Like with some of the bigger tournaments, it's a little bit longer. But even still, it's structure.
Right.
Going back to your question, you need more structure, and even structure within the outing where it's like, hey, your slider has been terrible, uncompetitive, not in the zone. The action of it's great. Throw it 60+% of the time this outing, because we need to work on it.
And do you think that, and this is kind of the question answers itself, but do you think that people don't do that because they're so tied to the results of the outing? For example, I'm going out there, you're my pitching coach, you say, Bubba, what you just said, your slider action's great, but it's been uncompetitive lately. Mm-hmm. I need you to go out there and throw 60%. Mm-hmm. Me, as the athlete, I'm like, no way, I don't want to do that because I'm going to suck. I'm going to walk guys. I'm going to get hit. I'm going to do this. As a coach, how can you get it through to your players that this is just a part of the process?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that that's a part of the issue too, is these, not just travel ball coaches, but high school coaches and just organizations in general are more result oriented, younger and younger and younger, which is just a deep part of that problem.
100%.
Yeah.
And again, going back to, my long-winded answer at first with like the pro ball kind of workup.
Right.
Think about what those guys are working on in rookie ball. And I would say a majority of them are kind of like a high school senior-ish age, maybe like a college freshman-ish age, the 18 to 20-ish range. And they're making sure they just don't throw it to the backstop.
Right.
And a pro ball organization's like, we like that. So, you got to be able to climb the ladder and to have the freedom to fail. Like, nobody cares. If you get to big, nobody cares what your minor league numbers are. Like, they just don't care. Nobody cares. Your high school coach doesn't care about your 12 and under travel season. And you can just work it down. Like, when the Mariners drafted me, there was no like, hey, by the way, what was your ERA, 12 under? Okay, it was good. All right, cool, now we'll take you. Like, nobody cares. Mm-hmm. But because I had somebody on my side to kind of help me understand how to develop myself, I was able to play this long game. And it was fine if I was going to go out and throw, looking back on it, it's like my changeup is just like the worst thing of all. It's just horrendous, always. So I remember being younger and like being forced to throw. It's like a lefty's up. It's like, here's 10 of them in a row. It's just like, all right, like it's just horrendous. But I'm giving it, I have the freedom to work on it. So going back to your question, it's structure, and it's even structure about the structure. Not bare minimum is like, hey, what day are you throwing? Okay, cool, I'm throwing Saturday. How many innings? I don't know. It's like, work your way up the structure ladder.
Yeah.
And then from there, even within the outing or even within the inning or a certain batter, it's like you could just go and go and go and go. And that is what true development is. It's like, going back to my wannabe really good golf days in high school where I was lucky enough to at least just play around really, pretty high level golfers. When I would talk to them about how they would practice or what they're even like, what their goal is of the round or whatever it is, like my mind is like, I want to shoot 68. It's like, okay, well, you shot 77 last week, so probably not going to happen. And if you ask the higher level golfers, it's like, I've been struggling with hitting low trajectory irons like into soft, like it's like, okay, I'm not to that level in terms of being okay with sucking at age 12, 13, 14, so on and so forth, to really like work on something in a round. And like if you shoot 85 or you shoot 75, as long as you committed to that structure of the round,
right,
of the
process.
It's a like these are games, they're practices. Mm-hmm. That's all those travel ball things are. Or even high school, like, yes, do you want to go win a tournament and, go to states and, all of the things? 100%, and it's not even out of the question. However, you have to structure it based around the lowest hanging fruits of that person.
Yeah, those things, the state tournament, the championships, those are byproducts of the commitment to the process.
Yes.
The structure, as
Yep.
you were saying. Yeah, the
Yep.
practice.
So with the Mariners, we would get something called your shove score, okay? And it was completely divided up basically into two separate categories. One would be your process score, and then one would be your outcome score. Like two completely, and the process score is the one that was most important, right? Because, it's based off of how, right, because it'd be based off of how you would be expected to do in the big leagues. When you get to big leagues, the outcome, like,
That matters.
duh,
Yeah.
right? Especially playoff time, whatever that is, like it's done trying to work on stuff.
Right.
Go get the outs to be able to execute the final mission of this thing. However, for a minor league player, for a youth athlete, for high school, like early even on in college, like, there's a time and place to purely, totally dedicate to just process. And sucking is okay. Like that's cool.
It's part of the process.
Yeah,
That's the barrier for entry to being great
absolutely.
at anything. I mean, anything. Golf, pitching.
It's the same,
All
still
of it.
same.
All of it. Yeah, still
Yeah.
same. Still same.
Still same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to leave people with in the sense of actionable steps that they can take? I mean, you've already given a lot of value in that sense, but what specifically? What do you mean?
Yeah, I would say to do this where the throwing calendar that I outlined, and it'd be something cool, if we post this to YouTube, I can add in like a PDF, like a something.
That'd be awesome.
That to outline what a throwing calendar is. The other thing that I would say too, if you stayed all the way to the end of this and watched all the way through, we'll figure out a way to get them a link to be able to either just message us or something, do a free kind of like eval. I'll sit down and all the things that we talked about with your process and wherever you're at with a motion breakdown. If you have access to pitch data, we could even sit down and go through that. But we'll just kind of do like a free total evaluation as to where you're at, where your goals are, and kind of leave it there. Because I would like to see, rather than almost like giving out,
Right.
see who bites in a sense on that. And truthfully, like who would want to do that? It's a vulnerable thing to put yourself in and even like put that out there.
You're talking about from a player's perspective?
Yeah, be like, hey, like you recognize, like going back to your kind of thought there, it is, and it's hard to be okay with failing.
Right.
It's really tough because that identity, and that's a conversation for another time, but it is tough. And I think it's even tough at times for, even when we have athletes come in where they know that they're struggling with something and it's almost like they want to hide it. It's
Right.
like, I don't want to throw this pitch because it's not very good. I'm like, dude, throw it.
Yeah.
Like, throw
Right.
it. If it sucks, it sucks. Like, we can work on it. But yeah, anyway, so just to shed light even onto yourself, it's a super tough thing for doing. It's something that I know that you and I, as just
Yeah.
human beings with different things,
Yeah.
can struggle with too.
So,
Message us.
Okay,
Message us.
Message
Absolutely. If you stayed to the end, this was, an hour-ish, whatever it was, kind of a conversation. So yeah, I would love free eval, whatever it is. We can sit down, talk about your goals, where you're at, so on and so forth.
Cool. I think that was a good first one, dog. I think that was a really